instead of examining music so obscure that we don't even know the name of the song or its artist, we'll instead investigate relatively well-known songs that have some sort of mystery lurking in its background. Even though some of these rumors have been proven false, in the end, you can't always help if a myth changes your perspective of a song. In this video, I have handpicked 5 very catchy songs with remarkably interesting urban legends. Some of you might already be familiar with such stories as Paul Simon eating a chicken and egg in a bowl of oyakodon and getting the memorable title, Mother and Child Reunion.
But the mother and child reunion.
Or even after Tommy Two-Tone topped the charts in 1982, people were still issued the phone number 867-5309, and yes, they got calls 24/7 from people asking for Jenny.
Jenny, Jenny, who can I turn to?
The entries for this video were selected based on how in-depth the backstory of the urban legend goes, and how tangible the consensus of these myths are to being either true or false, or having some sort of explanation. So when trying to include entries of Tommy Johnson, or Robert Johnson for that matter, each selling their soul to the devil, you get more of a dead end than a crossroad.
I went to the crossroads.
Lastly, based on feedback from valued viewers of this channel, lists going forward won't be presented in any particular order. So instead of a countdown structure, this list will be starting at number 1 and going up to number 5, in no particular order. So without further ado, here we go. Number 1. Puff the Magic Dragon is about marijuana.
Puff the magic dragon.
In 1959, a 19-year-old Cornell University student named Lenny Lipton became inspired by Ogden Nash's famous 1936 poem, The Tale of Custard the Dragon, and set out to write a poem of his own. Lipton had his dragon, named Puff, written in his head, but needed to get Puff out on paper. Lipton had a friend whose roommate owned a typewriter. The friend of a friend let Lipton use the typewriter, and once Puff was on paper, Lipton kind of forgot about him until a few years went by and he was alerted that the owner of the typewriter was looking for him. It seemed that the owner of this typewriter hadn't forgotten about Puff and needed to get in touch with Lipton in order to give him royalties. The owner of the typewriter, this friend of a friend, was Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary, who had turned Lipton's forgotten poem into a hit song. But the story doesn't end with this little poem becoming a big hit. As early as 1964, speculation arose that Puff was a reference to smoking marijuana. For example, the word dragon could be a play on words for dragon. The land of Honolulu was supposedly a reference to the Hawaiian village Hanalei, known for its particularly potent marijuana plants. The word mist represented smoke, and then there's Puff's human friend Jackie, whose last name is Paper, which you can't roll a joint without. And if the name Puff itself isn't on the nose enough for you, then maybe Lived by the Sea isn't SEA, but rather the letter C, which is short for cocaine. In some ways, this is interesting. In other ways, these theories seem a bit forced. Regardless, it made for one of cinema's most hilariously uncomfortable car rides.
Great song.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Who would have thought it wasn't really about a dragon, huh?
What do you mean?
Some people think that to puff the magic dragon means they're really
Are you a pothead, Falker?
No.
But at the end of the day, both Lipton and Yarrow have upheld that it's simply an innocent song about the hardships of growing older.
In a land called Honolulu.
Number 2. Because is Moonlight Sonata backwards? With Beethoven being one of music's greatest composers and the Beatles being one of the most influential bands of pop music, their legacies were bound to collide. Here, the legend is that the Beatles' song Because is Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata played backwards. while there are similarities, because coming into existence thanks to the Beatles simply reversing the chords of Moonlight Sonata is definitely an oversimplification of how the song came to be. But the confusion may have originated from a misinterpretation caused by John Lennon himself while explaining Because's origin. "This morning I wrote this song called Because. Yoko was playing some classical bit and I said, 'Play that backwards,' and we had a tune." So listeners can't be blamed for the confusion, but what Lennon had in mind was that Because had been inspired by Moonlight Sonata's chord progression being played in reverse, whereas the urban legend itself suggests that playing Moonlight Sonata backwards becomes Because, which is not the case. This wasn't the first time Lennon lent himself to an avoidable misinterpretation. The confusion between Moonlight Sonata and Because was nothing compared to the can of worms that Lennon opened when he said the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. But maybe that's a story for another video. Number 3. In the Air Tonight is about a drowning. Here's another urban legend that could be caused by listeners taking the songwriter at face value. And no pun intended, since this next song comes from Phil Collins' quintuple platinum album, Face Value. As with most songs on the 1981 LP, the unforgettable hit, In the Air Tonight, deals with the bitter and frustrating divorce that Collins had been going through. Where listeners read a little too far between the lines for Puff the Magic Dragon, having drawn interpretations that just simply weren't there, here, listeners instead took the first verse of In the Air Tonight quite literally.
Well, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand.
As a result, people thought the lyrics were based on a drowning in which Collins observed someone watching someone else drowning and refused to help. The story goes that Collins is either too far away and/or intoxicated to assist in the rescue, but another bystander is much closer, yet they deliberately don't save the drowning person. There are several variations of this legend, one of which ends with Collins doing detective work of his own to find the identity of the person who refused to help. Collins would invite this bystander to one of his concerts for free, without revealing that he too had witnessed the drowning, and then would confront the man in front of a large audience. And as a result, the bystander would lose everything as punishment for not saving someone else when he could have. None of this is true, and Collins has explained this several times. While the song itself has a legacy in its own right, it's difficult to shake this myth out of your head while listening to it. This rumor would be further perpetuated 19 years later, with Eminem referencing the drowning incident in his hit, Stan, during a verse in which the song's titular character commits a murder-suicide by drowning.
You know the song by Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight, about that guy who could have saved that other guy from drowning, but didn't? Then Phil saw it all, then at a show he found him.
Thankfully, this awesome song isn't only remembered for its anger about divorce or urban legend about drowning, but rather, it can be associated with laughter too.
Stewie?
Hey, wait, hold on a second. I want to try something.
I remember the worry.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
You close, my guy.
Oh Lord. Oh shit.
But the pain just grows, so strange to you and me.
Number 4. Gloomy Sunday is the Song of Death. Gloomy Sunday is a 1933 composition written by Rezzo Saris and covered by dozens of different artists, including Bjork, Ray Charles, Elvis Costello, Sarah McLachlan, and most famously, at least in the English-speaking world, Billie Holiday.
Sunday is gloomy.
When it was originally written, the song's title was translated as The World is Ending, which was about despair caused by war. It was when poet Laszlo Haver rewrote the lyrics that the song took on its title Sad Sunday and was instead about a suicidal protagonist mourning the death of his lover. Sad Sunday was eventually renamed again, this time with its official title, Gloomy Sunday. The song's somber lyrics were so depressing that Gloomy Sunday became the subject of claims that several people committed suicide after or while listening to it. Other stories include the song was referenced in a suicide note, or that its sheet music was found in the deceased's hand, or that the record was found on a gramophone at the scene of the suicide. Such rumors led Gloomy Sunday to be known by yet another moniker, the Hungarian suicide song. Reports from the 1930s have associated Gloomy Sunday with 17 to 19 suicides. However, this is quite a difficult claim to verify. And despite these rumors being unsubstantiated, radio networks banned Gloomy Sunday from airplay. Specifically, the BBC banned Billie Holiday's version, saying that the lyrics were detrimental to wartime morale, thus only allowing instrumental performances to be broadcasted. Even without any hard evidence to support the claim that Gloomy Sunday was indeed a suicide anthem and/or influential over the public's morale, this ban remained in place until 2002. Adding fuel to this fire, the song's original composer, Retso Seres himself, ended up committing suicide in a rather gruesome fashion. Seres intended to fall to his death by jumping out of a window, but unintentionally survived the fall. While at the hospital, he had gotten a hold of a wire and managed to choke himself to death with it. His death has an urban legend of its own, with claims that Seres became severely depressed because he was unable to produce another hit after Gloomy Sunday. In the end, even though Gloomy Sunday had a morbid connection to several sad incidents, it's likely that the circumstances of these tragedies have been embellished. At the time of these suicides, particularly in Hungary, there was a striking increase of famine and poverty, plus the rise of Nazi Germany's influence in Europe. Knowing how history unfolded, it's sad to know that a lot of these suicides make sense, with the knowledge that things ended up getting a lot worse before they got better.
Gloomy Sunday.
Number 5.
And now,
People have been killed for singing My Way.
and so I face.
This entry was brought to my attention by Alex, a fellow member of the mysterious music community. My Way was popularized by Frank Sinatra, who recorded a hit record with it in 1969. However, between the years of 2002 and 2012, it's been associated with numerous people being killed for singing the song. This social phenomenon is particularly prominent at karaoke bars in the Philippines. Karaoke is immensely popular in the Philippines. Regardless if you are rich or poor, it's a pastime that everybody participates in, and is also something taken very seriously in certain circles. To give a little more context as it relates to the My Way killings, a security guard at a bar in San Mateo shot and killed a 29-year-old karaoke singer because his rendition of My Way was off-key. Prior to the shooting, the security guard had asked the man to stop singing, to which the 29-year-old refused, and the altercation ended with the guard firing a .38 caliber pistol. This is just one of at least a half dozen violent cases connected with the song, prompting Filipino newspapers to dub the phenomenon the My Way killings. As a result, My Way has been reportedly taken off of the karaoke playlists in many bars in Manila. And even locations that still had the song available, people refused to sing it as a means of avoiding violent confrontation. The New York Times has an interesting piece on this subject, which offers a potential explanation into the phenomenon. Because karaoke bars have been prone to violent attacks, not unlike any establishment that serves alcohol, plus breaches of karaoke etiquette can be particularly offensive, such as laughing at someone else or singing a song that's already been sung. Topped with My Way's lyrics of being perceived as overly confident, prideful, and/or just outright aggressive, all of these factors could add up to a recipe for disaster. There are other songs in other parts of the world that have also been the subject of karaoke rage. such as John Denver's Take Me Home Country Roads in Thailand, and even Coldplay's Yellow in my hometown of Seattle. But none as notable as My Way.
My share of losing, and now.
Thanks again to Alex for suggesting the My Way killings to be covered in Mysterious Music. If you have a suggestion on a song or album to be covered in a future episode of Mysterious Music, please leave a comment below. Your viewership and feedback are always appreciated, and I hope you liked that I tried something a little different for today's episode of Mysterious Music. My next 2 episodes will be follow-ups to Top 10 Most Mysterious Songs and 5 mysterious songs that were eventually identified. Up next will be 10 more mysterious songs, followed by 5 more mysterious songs that were eventually identified. I wasn't sure if I was going to do follow-up videos like this, but with the impressive rate that these mysterious songs are getting identified, I thought I'd commemorate the community's great detective work by making a new list with less outdated information. It's only a matter of time before Like the Wind gets solved. So if you enjoyed this video, are excited for the next 2 videos, or want the full story of Like the Wind once it's identified, please make sure to like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, and become a patron at my Patreon. You can also support me by buying one of my books, all available at Amazon.com. Until next time, valued viewer, keep your mind, eyes, and ears open and spread the joy of music. Thanks, as always, for watching.
That's